This is Eastmans Elevated podcast. I have on great guests that are really knowledgeable, consistently successful. We're able to dive deep down the rabbit holes of these different subject matters of shooting, of physical fitness, of mental toughness and drive. All the different skills that make up a complete hunter that you can become.
Here's your host, Brian Barney.
Hey, what's happening, guys? Got a brand new podcast for you. So this week I have back on my friend Todd Helms. Todd Helms is the editor at Eastmans Bowhunting Journal and Eastmans Hunting Journal, and he does a great job with it. So today our podcast is all about capturing the hunt. And we talk about capturing the hunt through written word and how to get published through one of our magazines. We talk about harvest photos. We talk about support photos. We talk about quality and everything in between. Todd's a heck of an elk hunter and a great fisherman, and this summer I've had the chance to hang out with him a bit, and I've really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed this conversation. So we'll get right into it. Just want to thank the sponsors, High Mountain Seasoning. High Mountain Seasoning makes a variety of jerky seasonings, and I made a batch this year with my antelope that's just absolutely to die for. So I've been trying out these different jerky seasonings. They also make everything you need to make snack sticks, summer sausage, everything to process your wild game. They also make steak marinades. It's just a great company, great flavor to their seasoning, so make sure to check them out. Our other sponsor for today's show is Iota Outdoors. Iota makes high-end scope rings and mounts. Their scope rings and mounts are built so you can trust them. They also have a built-in level. I always think that's so important, so you don't cant your rifle, because if you cant it to the right, you miss to the right, and same thing goes with the left. But having that level in there just makes sure that your rifle's sitting level on any slope for any shot. I just think that's so important to accuracy, so I always mention that. Iota also makes high-end rifle stocks. They've got a couple different ones to choose from. It'll really improve your accuracy, so if you're in the market for a new stock, make sure to check them out, Iota Outdoors. Over there at Eastman's, everybody's been busy going on these hunts. I see Dan Pickar's had a lot of success here. Arrowed a really good bull, got an antelope the other day. And so the pictures are starting to roll in, and it's fun to be part of. Make sure to be on the lookout. We've got some great Beyond the Grids coming up. I'll make sure to let you know the episodes and when they're going to drop. We've got some great ones already. If you just search Beyond the Grid on YouTube, you'll come across it and some great videos. And with that, let's get into it. So Todd Helms and I, Eastmans Elevated, here we go.
Yeah, I can hear you clear as a bell.
Perfect. Right on. Well, man, it's been fun. We've been hanging out a couple days there. We got to fish together. You made a run up here to Montana. It's been fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is a great time of year to be up in your neck of the mountains, and I gotta love fishing in Montana when you get the chance. Everything down around us is just starting to come into shape. Water's still high and muddy. We've gotten a ton of rain like you guys have, and big snow year in a lot of places, and there's still a lot of snow in high country in places here. So, there's roads you can't even use because there's so much snow up high. Guys are having to get creative with their scouting.
I bet.
For deer, but yeah. Man, it's been fun. I've enjoyed being in the boat with you and having a good time.
Oh, yeah, we've had fun. Yeah, it happens way later in Wyoming. There's a couple rivers in Montana it happens later, but for some reason, these rivers right around me, even though I'm around the same elevation as you and the mountains are the same height, they just they seem to clear up a little bit sooner. But yeah, it's been fun, man. Really good hatches, and then you're really good at fly fishing. It's fun to fish with somebody that's good at fly fishing and then also really good at oaring. You must have guided for years because you sure know your way around a drift boat and behind the sticks.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a heck of a compliment, Brian, because I could say the same thing about you. If, we kind of laughed fishing the other day when we had you and your dad in the boat. All three of us were in the boat, and it was like everybody knew how to run the oars. and everybody knew how to fish well. And what a team to float down a riverbank, just as you said, just assassinating cover and features where the fish are. Those trout, if they're going to eat, man, they don't stand a chance with a team like that in the boat. At least it feels that way anyway.
Oh, it sure does, doesn't it? They're like fly fishing so much about it, and it's not a fly fishing podcast. This is just like what we've been doing, hanging out lately. But like fly fishing, it's so much about the way you fish the fly rather than the fly that you're fishing, if that makes sense. Like it's not like there's a magic bug you put on and every fish is trying to eat it. It's like the way you present it and the way you cast it in, and it's a high degree of difficulty to get it flipped under the trees or to get a mend or a reverse mend with the current so the current doesn't grab your line and pull your bug. Like there's a real art to it that takes hours to master it, hours, days, weeks, months, years to master it. And so it takes a long time with a fly rod in your hands to get that good, and also in a boat. And so when you're going down, you can really appreciate skill when somebody can get it in there, and then you get rewarded for it, you know. And we've been able to see some really nice trout, and we're really looking for 8A. We pushed the limits the other day and went and fished up high. That was really fun, as that's a pretty gnarly stretch in a drift boat. There aren't many guys that do it in a drift boat. We went for it. Unfortunately, we got stormed out, but we did see some nice fish. You caught that real nice brown off that shelf. That was fun.
Yeah, that was some skinny water. You know, he was laying there off that shelf and just a couple inches of water. And I don't know, just had a feeling and threw it in there. But, you know, when you were talking about it's not so much the fly, it's the way you fish it, I saw some of that just the day after you and I floated. I fished a different section and fished a different bug and still had phenomenal results. And I'm sitting here thinking about that as we're talking, and it's the same. It's kind of an analogy for writing stories, you know, for writing a hunting story. It's not so much the story, it's the way you tell it, if that makes sense. You know, to make a really awesome story, there's lots of awesome stories out there, but if you don't tell it the right way, you're not going to get anybody to bite on it. Does that make sense?
Man, it so does. What a great segue. What are you, a podcast host over there? No, you're absolutely right, Todd. Like that that relates to so much to what I do on the podcast. Is like a lot of times you're right. It's everybody's hunting story is really cool. Like it's a unreal experience to go out in nature and to be able to get into them and be in the heart of action and earn all that, you know, the majority of them earn it on public ground, which is really tough, and then have it come together. Like everybody has an epic hunting story. But that's not what gets you into the magazine. What gets you in the magazine is you have to be good at articulating and telling that story, good at the details, and you don't have to be like this phenomenal writer to make it in the magazine. Like you're really good at working with guys. Like writing, you know, writing's an art as well, and I know you believe this too. You're a really good writer. But really it's just the thoughts in your head, being able to put those onto paper, and it doesn't just all come at once. Like for me, I have to write things and then I have to go back over them. Sometimes I've got to cross off entire paragraphs and go, God, I just didn't say that the way I wanted to say that. But the magazine, the art of it is to really be a good storyteller through your words, isn't it? So people can picture it and be there.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You can have the same story told by two different people, and it's completely different. It's the same story, but it's completely different. You know, where as one person's just going to talk about the nuts and bolts, and we went out, found this bull, and got him killed, and we packed him out, and we went home. And it's like, okay, that's a nice job. Cool. That was short, sweet, to the point. But there's an art to it that, in it, yeah, you don't have to be a pro, obviously. I mean, that's what I'm here for, to help guys with their submissions. And I love doing that. I love helping people get the story told correctly. But if you can think about a different angle or more detail or just those little snippets of things that you can add in and pretend you're sitting around a campfire with a group of buddies or a group of people you don't even know, and you're telling them about this hunt. It should be a story that gets people's attention, first of all, holds their attention with the details, and then leaves them walking away from it going, wow, what a cool story, with the way you wrap it all up at the end. And it does take some time. Like you said, it's hard to just sit down and crank one of those out the first shot and have it be perfect. Very few people can do that. You know, the best of the best writers didn't even do that. They said that Hemingway would sit down and write for 8 hours when he was writing books and novellas and short stories. He would sit down, start his day at 5 a.m., and he might write a couple sentences in 8 hours, or a paragraph or two in 8 hours, or a page in 8 hours. And I'm not asking for that kind of dedication for a magazine article, obviously, but that just gives you an idea of how it can be. And at the same time, Brian, I talk to guys every year that want to do a submission. You know, they kill a great bull or buck or ram, and they have a great story to tell, but they're blue-collar guys, man. They work with their hands for a living, or maybe they work with numbers behind a desk. It doesn't matter what they do. Maybe they're not comfortable trying to write up a story. And I like helping those guys and saying, you know what, you just get your thoughts on paper the best you know how, and it's my job as your editor to clean it up and to make it the best it can possibly be. And I obviously get some submissions every year that are like, holy smokes, I got my work cut out for me. And that's okay. That's my job. That's why I'm here. But I also get some like the EBJ that's out right now. There's 2 stories in the EBJ that are out right now. Nick Sager's story about his polar bear hunt in Nunavut. And then off the top of my head, I can't think of it. Let me grab a magazine real quick.
So just a little backstory. So Todd's my editor over there at Eastmans Hunting Journal, Eastmans Hunting Journal. So you guys have heard him on the podcast before. He also runs Wingman over there. And so what we're talking about is being able to submit a story to Eastmans. God, what a prestigious honor to have an article in print for other like-minded backcountry hardcore bow hunters or hardcore rifle hunters to be able to read your story and really... Like, guys, this is how I got my start in the industry. I didn't know how to start back in the day, and so I started submitting articles. And I started writing articles, and believe me, I never did good in English class. I never was good with my grammar, my punctuation, I wasn't good at any of that. The only thing I was good at was hunting and telling my story, and so I just started working at it. And the more you do it, the better you get. I'm all self-taught, but really to be printed in one of these magazines, that's how I got my start. That's how people started to notice me. That's how I started to make a name for myself, that I could go on these giant adventures, then I could write about it, tell my story. Eastmans did a great job. Back in the day, they get you gear for your story. They still do now to this day, and it's all good, high quality gear. And I remember that was like the first sponsorship I had, or the first free gear that anybody had ever sent me, and it meant a lot. And I remember they send you an Eastmans Hunting Journal hat, and I remember it was like a free hat that I earned for my story, almost earned it for my blood, sweat, and tears. And I was proud of that,
right?
and wore it the next years. And I'm still proud to this day to be able to write in that magazine, but it's such a cool deal to have your hunting story presented to other like-minded hunters. And so that's what me and Todd are talking about right now is this year everybody's planning these hunts, and I just want to plant the seed with you guys so you guys take a bunch of photos, which those photos, whether you're in print or not, are so fun to look back on and to write that story. I still have every story I've ever written, and I go back and I read the first one that I had in print in Eastman's magazine, and I'm really proud of it. And I can see all my influences, and I know how much better of a writer I am nowadays, but I could still tell a good story back then, and I'm proud of that. So I just wanted to give you a little backstory of what we're talking about. So what was the other story you were talking about, Todd, in Eastman's Hunting Journal?
Yeah, we kind of put the cart before the horse there a little bit, jumped into conversation, but yeah.
It was your smooth transition is what did it, so I just wanted to give the guys some good backstory.
Yeah, exactly. So EBJ 114 is the most current issue that we have right now. We just sent EHJ 174 out last week to the printer, but that won't hit mailboxes, or it's digitally available as we speak. But just an example, a couple examples of stories that are just amazing from right out of the gate. In EBJ 114, the first one is a story called The Change by David Burgess. And we don't normally print stories in their entirety. We're pretty limited for space in the magazines. And so if you write a story that's 1,500 or 2,000 words or 2,500 words, I'm going to whittle that down at the editor's desk to 700, 800, 900 words, so I can use a bunch of your pictures and still tell the story in its kind of a distilled essence of the story, if that makes sense. The other one in there is called, by Nick Sagar, it's a polar bear hunt in Nunavut, called Kavavau's Smile. Both of those stories we published in their entirety, which very seldom happens. They're over, Kavavau's Smile, Nick Sagar's story was over 2,000 words, and I used the whole thing. I read it, and it was literally, I think I changed like maybe one or two things in it, and that was just little grammatical slips that he had made. It was perfect as it was. Those are rare. I don't see a lot of those because, quite frankly, guys don't write for a living, and I don't expect them to be. Those are examples of like, holy smokes, those are amazing. Then I've got other examples of somebody who has maybe struggled to get me 700 or 800 words, and that's okay, because I take those and I polish it up, and we still get it in the magazine. And then what a lot of times I see, Brian, is those guys that maybe struggle telling the story with words have taken really good photos. So they have great photo support, and their photos, we've all heard the expression, a picture's worth 1,000 words. That is so true with the magazine, because I can tell a story, or my designers can tell a story with those pictures, and the words are kind of like support, which is really cool. So there's options out there. I guess if I'm going to shoot for a piece of advice, you kind of hit on it earlier. You need to be taking a lot of high quality photos in the field, because the story is going to be etched in your head, if that makes sense. And you're going to be able to sit down later on and write that out, especially if you have good photos to help jog your memory. Does that make sense?
Oh, it absolutely makes sense. Yeah. Well, and I just want to touch on what you're talking about a little bit more, because it is so important, like the pictures. I mean, me, for my layouts, of my articles, I'm always looking at the pictures to tell even more of a story than my words. Like, I want guys to look at my pictures and want to be in that spot. And it's, I'm self-taught as a photographer too, and all I do is,
and you're darn good at it too.
Well, thank you. All I do is just put myself in really cool places and then hit the shutter button and figure it out from there. And I've learned some stuff over the years, but really what takes the best photos is just being in cool places, doing cool things, and taking photos of it, Even just looking back at, like, just me and you fishing the last couple of days, some of the photos that I've been able to grab just along the way, just having my camera there, that tells a whole story about what we were doing. And you're right, it jogs your memory. You look at those stories of, like, that storm that I posted yesterday. That's a pretty cool picture, man, with that dark clouds and just into the belly of the beast. Like, I like taking those pictures, but photography to me, you remember the hunt and catalog it so well, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. Like, I'd almost rather write a 500-word article or a 1,000-word article, but then just have a really good layout with really good pictures. Man, does that make for a great article, and it captivates the audience. And so you're right, the way to do that, I take pictures like I'm going to be successful on every hunt. Even if it comes down to the end, I'm still taking a bunch of photos. I mean, And I'm taking photos because I like it. It doesn't take away from my hunt. Like sometimes I'm looking for what I call like the $1 million shot. If I'm hunting with a buddy, sometimes that picture will mean more to me than arrowing a trophy. Like that, I've got a picture of my buddy Chase hunting caribou in Alaska, and we snuck up on this giant bull that had over, 400 inches, 40, 50 points, and we snuck in inside 40 yards on this thing, and we're kneeling right there. And my buddy Chase arrow knocked, and we're just waiting for this bull to stand. And I started grabbing pictures with my camera, and I had a good lens on there. And I've got this picture of him blurry with his bow, and then the caribou's horns right on the skyline in bow range in focus.
Focus?
Oh my gosh, it's just the $1 million photo. I absolutely love
cool.
that. And hunting takes us to the most remote places, and it's like everywhere you look is a picture. It's when you're up there, it's a special feeling you get, and you can capture that with a camera. You can capture those moments with a camera, and throughout the entire year, go back and look at those photos, and they'll take you back to that spot. I mean, I've got pictures blown up in my house of my favorite hunting spots. I've got one of my buddy Dan with his backpack, and he's hiking the high mountains of Colorado, and there's a big storm building in the backdrop, but it's all sunlit. And I had it blown up and in my house, and like it's a certain feeling to look at that photo. So yeah, you can't take enough good photos, and it's so easy today with the cameras, and I really like high quality images, but those DSLRs are heavy cameras. So understand, like those mirrorless cameras right now are they money. Like what a bang for your buck for those A6000s or those A6300s.
Right.
I still use that connected to my bino harness. A lot of times I'll bring two cameras, and I'm running the A7 IIR, which I absolutely love. I've got a killer Zeiss lens on it, but that A6000 for the money, oh my God, will that thing take great shots. Still, I use that camera constantly with a wide-angle lens or different lenses, and it just doesn't cost that much to get into. And that, coupled with, a good cell phone camera, some of those cameras nowadays have 3 different lenses, and I don't like to push cell phone cameras for articles.
I know,
but your
work.
cell phone.
They work.
Yeah, and some people's cell phone.
They work.
Yeah, are so good. Like even that picture of that brown that I got, like that you caught off that shelf, I had my camera in the boat because we were hiking, and so I just clicked a quick one, and I have like an iPhone 8.
And it's a great photo.
And it's a great photo. So you just with a cell phone, use that in addition to the camera, or if that's all you got, just take a bunch with that too. Some of my buddies, that's all they use, and they get great photos and video. Just use that thing and just be clicking pictures every time you stop, everywhere you're walking, everywhere you got a good backdrop. And then, like, I like to get the foreground too, like whether that's flowers or the creek or a tree in the foreground.
Right.
But just start messing with it, and you'll see what's cool and what's not cool. And in today's day of social media, like you can build your own name from nothing. Like you can build a following, just by taking cool photos, and really cool photos is just going and doing cool things and capturing, I really think.
No, I completely agree. And I really want to touch on the phone aspect, because I would say the bulk of submissions that come across my desk are photographs with phones, whether it's an iPhone or whether it's an Android phone. The cameras in these phones today are really high quality. And, people, back in the day, I would say, 5-10 years ago, we couldn't use cell phone images in a magazine. They were not good enough for publication. But these newer phones, anything from, I'd say, an iPhone 6 or newer, and Android, I couldn't tell you models on Androids. I've run an iPhone now for so long, but if you've got a cell phone that's 2 to 3 years old in your pocket, it's going to take pretty good photos. Now, there's things that will affect that. If you have a big waterproof case, like I do on my phone, if I'm going to run video or photos on my phone, I take it out of that life-proof case, or the OtterBox case if you got one of those, just because it's one more thing between your lens and your subject of your photo. But, I mean, honestly, Brian, we have printed covers in the last year that were, the last 2, that were taken with a cell phone, with like an iPhone. And that's, a cover photo, is when you look at an Eastman's cover, somebody that's on the cover of either EHJ or EBJ, everything about that submission has to be like perfect. It has to be a very high quality animal. The angle of the photo has to be right. It has to be a vertical shot. For all you guys out there that are planning on knocking down something giant and are interested in submission for a cover, or think you've got cover material, you've got to have vertical shots. We've got to have vertical, think magazine cover. So the orientation of the photo is straight up and down versus horizontal. And we've had guys do that with phones. The story has to be well told. The pictures have to be great. It takes so much to get a cover that out of all the submissions that I get in a year, there's only a dozen of them that make a cover. And that's saying a lot, because I get a lot of submissions in a year. And I would say the bulk of those are the photos are taken with a cell phone. And that's not an issue if, like you said, you're thinking about the composition of your photograph, you're thinking about the framing of your photograph, you're thinking about putting those photographs together the best you can. I don't know how many times that I'll get it, someone will send in a great animal and the nose will be cut off, or they will have taken a picture too close with a phone and part of the antlers or the horn will be cut off. And for just pulling it up on your phone and showing somebody, it's like, oh, that's cool. For putting it in a magazine as a submission, or like you said, printing it off, blowing it up, and framing it in your house, you want to take some time and really take lots of good photos. And I'd like to hear your thoughts, because you're really good, Brian, on taking trophy photos. And I would like to hear your thoughts on how you prep an animal in the field to take trophy shots.
Oh man, a good trophy shot is an art. I bet you sort through so many there at the magazine, picking those things out. And like you say, a cover one is so special. Taking those vertical shots is a great tip. But harvest shots, you want to do the animal justice. Like the harvest shot to me is as much the trophy as anything that I've done out there. You're trying to capture that moment of success that's so difficult to obtain. And so, yeah, when I get an animal down, like back in the day, I used to almost get overwhelmed trying to get a good photo of it, just to be able to see it. But I use my camera. I can connect to an app on my phone that then my phone acts as a remote. But most of the time, I just set a timer on my camera. I set it up on a tripod.
Right.
I frame the shot. Like, it's really important when you get the animal down to really clean it up and make it look presentable. If it's going to be in a magazine, like, you're representing all hunters out there. Like, if you double lung hit an animal, he's got blood coming out of his nose, and sometimes that can be really tough to clean up. I usually take my game bags and I'll really wipe the nose down, and I'm just trying to clean up everything. The shot, I'm trying to clean up the shot so that it doesn't have a bunch of blood running down the body, and just clean it up so it's aesthetically appeasing, to the eye. So I really clean up my trophy, and anytime I get a trophy down, like, I'm taking a bunch of photos. I want to take walk-up photos. I want to take close-ups of the horns, grabbing the horns. I want to snow falling down on the horns. I want to, and before I get my trophy or as I'm getting my trophy, but when I arrow a good critter, like, I'll probably gather 100 to 200 photos. And in harvest shots, yeah, you got to get working on your animal, and the meat is the priority to get that taken care of. But, you've got time to set up and get a really good picture. Yes. Like, you should, on a really good animal that you kill, I think it should be 50 to 100 pictures of just the harvest photo. Because you start sorting through those and find what you like.
Right. And what's that take, Brian? 30 minutes?
Yeah, maybe 30 minutes. And to me, it's all part of it, of really enjoying the experience, that it came together, is taking a few moments before I get back to work, just enjoying that this came together. And to me, that's part of the joy. And like, I've got a smile on my face when my kid harvests an animal. I'm taking a bunch of photos when my family does, and the same thing when I harvest an animal. I'm taking a bunch of photos so I can remember this moment and grab a couple good images. And out of 50 to 100, you'll have 3 or 4 that really turn out the way you like it. So and so I clean up the animal and I get them set up. I start looking at the backdrop and paying attention to the backdrop and also paying attention to the sun. The only thing that's bad in a harvest photo is direct sunlight. So I really try to get to like the shade of a tree or the shade of something if it's really sunshiny out. If it's cloudy, you can get good images. And so I just try to get away from direct sunlight, and really I look more at the backdrop than I do the lighting for me. I really want a backdrop that represents where I've harvested this animal at. And whether that's, sagebrush rolling draws with a sunset going down, or whether that's big mountains behind you, or sometimes you kill them in thick cover and it's just the timber and the terrain and habitat around you. But trying to capture that, so I look at the backdrop and then I really try to get that animal to a natural state, like almost like it's bedded there. It should almost look alive when it's sitting there. And so I try to tuck its legs underneath it. I get it rolled over and up on top, try to find a flat spot or flatter spot where I can roll it up. And then I just start setting my camera up and I look for different angles, and I'm looking for the angle that shows off the animal the best. Sometimes that's sideways, usually muleys for me. Muleys I like head on or a slight turn, but I love that head on or slight turn look. Now, when you're taking pictures for an article, it's good to also get a sideways shot, because Eastmans will use that sideways shot and that head on to give everybody a full look at your trophy. And so it's good to get all angles. But really what I'm looking for is the best angle on this animal. I'm looking for the one photo that's just going to do it for me when I'm looking for a harvest photo. So I start setting up my camera. I've got the animal set up. I start tilting the head. Muleys, it's really important to get their nose down. It makes them look taller. It brings them in close to the camera. So I like to never sit on my animal. I like to pose them up. I like to get behind them. Sometimes I like to be in between the horns. Sometimes I like to be the side. And what I do is I just start taking pictures and looking at them, and I start looking at them with a critical eye, kind of zooming in. And so I'll take 3-4 photos from an angle, and then I'll go back to my camera and I'll look at it and kind of zoom in, look at my face, look at the animal, look at the horns, and go, well, what would be better here? And then I might move my camera angle up, like move my tripod up, or maybe move my tripod lower and pull some grass. I try to focus. I make my focus like the deer's nose or the deer's eyes or the animal right there is what I try to focus on. And a lot of them are autofocus now on today's phones and cameras and things. You just want to make sure it doesn't focus on the grass in front of them. And that's another good tip, is cleaning out that grass in front of that animal. I'm glad
you're talking about that. I'm glad you're hitting on that.
Yeah, well, pulling up all that grass in front of the nose, in front of the head, in front of the animal, really expose the animal. And so I'm kind of looking for open spots when I'm setting up. But then if I've got grass or sticks or anything in the way, I'm really clearing that stuff out of my way so I can get a clear picture of the animal right there. So those are like a few things. I like to have the weapon in there. Make sure the weapon isn't pointed at you or like something stupid like that. That just doesn't go over well in the magazine. Even if it's unloaded, or even if you have it sitting there on the animal, or sometimes angles can just play tricks and it looks like the barrel's pointed right at your head or something, which isn't good.
It's not.
Yeah, exactly. So, be cognizant of that, and just take your time and enjoy the moment, and really just move that camera around and find different angles and find where that animal shows the best. And then sometimes I'll flip it around and I'll be taking pictures one way and looking at them, and then I'll go, God, I'm just going to get some pictures the other way. And so I'll kind of move my camera to the other side of the animal and set up with like a different view. Skylining the antlers always looks cool. If you can get the antlers to skyline out, it shows them off. Or sometimes a timber backdrop, so something where those horns really contrast with the backdrop to show them off. And then you just get behind your animal, just start clicking some shots, and all of a sudden you'll find the angle, and then you try to take 5 or 10 of that angle, and it's like, man, I got him. But then the support when you harvest an animal for these articles, the close-ups of the horns and the close-ups of you grabbing the horns, your buddy standing around the trophy, if you just click shots in those moments, you're going to get some good ones, starting to butcher your animal with your knife, walking up to your animal. I I love the walk-up photo as much as I like the harvest photo anymore, the as they lay. Like, just when you walk up on that animal, to set that camera up and then try to capture that photo of you just walking up or touching that animal or walking up behind it with your weapon, your bow, your rifle. Man, I love those photos. I've got some cool ones of my dad. He killed a really good buck late season 2 years ago. I got some walk-up photos that are just insane. And same thing with my uncle. He killed his best buck to date in some walk-up photos. And I like that almost better than their harvest photos. I love those walk-up photos. But all of that is good content that then you can put together for us. So what did I miss there, Todd? Because you're really good at harvest photos. You look over thousands of them. Like, what would you say are the key points or what's really important to you?
I think everything that you said is very, very important, and I'm glad you talked about foreground in trophy shots. I get so many pictures where the grass or the brush isn't cleared away from the animal, especially the animal's face and headgear, whether it's horns or whether it is antlers. There'll be brush or grass sticking up in the way, and the focus of the photo then is the grass. It's not the animal. And so taking that time to pull weeds out of the way, pull grass out of the way, break brush, or in the case of deer and antelope, most of the time you can move those animals to some place that will offer you a better better stage to photograph on. Elk, as we all know, unless you got a team of dudes, elk are almost impossible to move by yourself. You may be able to roll them around a little bit and position them correctly, but elk are big, and if you got one or two people and you're trying to do that, that's a lot of work. If you kill it on a flat spot, yeah, you're going to be able to roll it around and pose it and get it looking the best, but trying to get the best possible pose out of that animal is vital, and making sure that brush is trimmed. Took photographs of a bull elk, I guess it was 2 years ago now, for a buddy. It ended up being his last bull, sadly. But we spent a lot of time making sure that those photographs were top notch, and I'm really glad we did. I even went so far as to cut a couple of little fir trees. This bull died in a really thick, nasty spot, and I cut a couple little fir trees out of the frame and was able to pose that animal up to make it so that I had a clear, unobstructed view of that animal for photographs. And now we all have those photographs to look back on and remember him and remember that hunt, and that's so important, so cool. So yeah, I'm glad you talked about that. I think about high country game, goats, sheep. A lot of times they'll die in places that you can't move them very far or very much. They might be pretty precariously perched someplace, and so just cleaning them up, getting the blood off of them as much as possible. If their tongue's sticking out, you can try to stick it back in, but I've honestly found the easiest way to take care of a tongue is cut it off. If you're gonna, if you want to save it to eat later on, which I know some people do, you can reach way down in and remove the tongue that way. It's easier to do after you skin the head out, but that tongue's going to hang out no matter what you do. Trying to stick it back in just doesn't ever seem to work. And we do crop that out. We can edit that out in certain circumstances, but if it's not there to begin with, you have a much better photograph. And so I think just taking the time, like you said, you've got more time than you think. You knock an animal down and it's hot. It's early season archery, and you knock a bull elk down and it's hot. You still have 30 minutes or 45 minutes to take photographs before the work starts, before you get that animal broken down and butchered. And I hear that a lot every year, Brian, where guys are like, oh, it was hot, and I just wanted to get them broke down and taken care of, and so I didn't get the greatest pictures. And I understand that sentiment. I really do. I get it. I've been there and done that. I'm sure you have too. but you can tell that they regret it. You can tell that they wish they would have taken more time to take better photos, not just for a submission in a magazine, not just for a submission in Eastmans, but for themselves, so they have those photos to look back on. I mean, let's face it, man, meat doesn't last very long in the freezer, and those antlers sitting on the wall are great to look back at and remember a hunt. But if you have photographs of the hunt itself from beginning to end, from the time you hit the trailhead or you're even starting to pack, the more photos you take, the more you're going to have to look back on and remember that hunt, and the more I'm going to have to work with a submission. You talked about support photography. That's huge. Support photography is huge. If all I have are Griffin grins, I can build a feature out of that, but it's going to be pretty plain Jane. It's going to be pretty vanilla feature. The best features have the most support, where it's almost like I could pick up that person's phone or camera and scroll through their photos, and they wouldn't have to tell me anything about the hunt. I'd get the whole thing just by looking at their photos.
Yes, that's what I love too. Yeah, telling the story through the photos, so important. And two, you can use all those support photos through social media, and there's so many places to share it.
Right.
To where the olden days, you had to get in a magazine for anybody to see your photo, but nowadays, God, you can share your photography, and you can share things through social media, and then to get publicized through Eastmans and shared on their pages, and it's just one of the positives of the social media world for sure, is that anybody can share their hunt or share their photos. And you're right, you tell such a story through those photos. There is nothing better to me than, like, before season gets here, like, I can go on my computer right now and go open files of, Colorado 2010, New Mexico, 2011. Right. I can go open photos of even 2016 Idaho, 2017 Colorado. I can just open up these files that have hundreds and hundreds of pictures of just this adventure that I went on. And God, I can relive the adventure, but I also, like, my buddies will come over and we'll start talking about doing a hunt or doing a high country, and I can walk them through that hunt, and they feel like they've been there with me, and not that I make everybody sit down and look through my photos when they come over, but you can really tell the entire story through those photos. So yeah, it just means the world to me. In fact, I just grabbed all my photos and cleared out my SD cards. I just got, all my photos from bear season and fishing here recently. Just got those all put onto my computer and in their file, and then cleared out, ready for hunting season, ready for the next hunt. But, yeah, I mean, for the story it helps, for social media it helps, but just to have them for yourself is really cool. And like you say, those harvest pictures, that's a moment in time you're trying to save. And if you get a good harvest photo, like, it just means the world. Like, you're really showing off that animal and all he has to offer, and you're showing him from his best angle. You're showing the country and the backdrop, and you can share that photo with family and friends and other backcountry hunters, and it's just it's so cool to be able to capture a good moment like that, or a moment that means so much to you, and then share it with everybody. So yeah, there just can't be enough emphasis on taking a lot of photos. That is the key.
Yeah, and obviously I have a job to do, and that is to gather material for Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal and Eastman's Hunting Journal, so we can produce magazines. And that's my job. That's what I do. But if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, well, I don't care if I'm in a magazine, or I'm not on social media, I don't care about that. That's fine. That's perfectly fine, because I get that too. But you should still be writing your stories, or still be taking photos at the very least, so you have that stuff to look back on. One of the most treasured possessions in my family are my dad's old photo albums and my dad's hunting journals that he kept. And he's still around, don't get me wrong, but I love sitting down and looking back through those old photos, because I'll see one and, man, it transports me right back to that hunt that I was on with him. Or it transports me, I can read a story and it takes me, a journal entry, and it takes me right back to a brisk November morning hunting deer, in North Country. And it's like, wow, that stuff's there for as long as it lasts. And it's priceless. So if you're, you should be keeping a journal, and you need to be taking lots of photographs, whether or not you plan on submitting to Eastmans, which please submit to Eastmans. Shameless plug. We need your stories. We want your stories, and we can't do what we do without you. So without you guys submitting stuff. So that said, but just the intrinsic value, Brian, of photographs and stories is, I don't know. I'm a word guy and I'm a story guy, and it means so much to me to have that stuff just to look back on, that I'm going to do it no matter what. So I just would like to encourage folks that this fall, whether they're out and about, keep a journal or sit down and write about a hunt and take lots and lots of photos. That way, if you want to submit it, you can. And I would encourage you to, because this is the way that I look at submissions that make the magazine. I was blessed enough, my wife and I were blessed enough, that the first year we were married, she killed her first bull elk, and it was a whopper. And I submitted it to Eastmans. And it made it. It made the magazine, and arguably that's why I'm where I'm at today, because it opened doors for me, as it did for you. All those stories that you submitted opened doors for you to be where you are now. Same thing for me. It opened the door to get me kind of build a relationship with Eastmans. And the next thing you know, here I am 4 years later, sitting at the editor's desk. And you just never know where that's going to take you. But the more important thing for me was that hunt for us was a big deal. We were newlyweds. It was her first elk. It was a big elk. And we had not only a story that I wrote and pictures that she and I took, but we had a magazine article. We had a whole bunch of magazines with her story and photographs in it, kind of memorializing that hunt, that animal, that time that we had together. And I can't express enough that when your story makes it in a copy of EBJ or EHJ, that's, I don't know, there's something special about that. You're going to have those magazines to look back on and to show kids and grandkids and relatives and friends, and just open up some night during the off season when hunting season's over and open that magazine up and to read that story again and see your pictures in a magazine. It's a special thing, and it's more for yourself than anything else. And I did not expect that when I submitted a story all those years ago, that it would make such a big impression on me, as far as being able to open it up years later and look back at that and go, wow, what a cool experience. What a cool hunt. What a great time in our lives. And it's right there. It's immortalized in print, man. It's not going anywhere. So it's just, that's why you should do it. That's just one more reason why you should do it, and it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's, people take notice too in that magazine, and you do it so you have it. And I've got the same thing. I've got stories framed that I've written that I look back on, and it preserves it forever, where you can take you back to that place and that hunt. But also, people take notice, like Eastman's is the number one magazine or media company in the West, and so like when you get publicized in there, like that's how I made my name. For young guys, It's really tough to get sponsored by companies nowadays, to get free gear, free bows, free camo, whatever the case is. It's really tough to get noticed. How you get noticed is by taking good photos, and then you're writing and you get publicized in magazines like Eastman's. And I remember, after I'd get 2, 3, 4 stories in Eastman's, like all of a sudden I was consistently successful, and people would take notice. People would recognize me from the magazine, and also companies started to know who I was. They started to know that I was that kid that was killing those high country mule deer. So all of a sudden I could call these companies and I could start getting in with these companies and the people, and maybe I'd get a discount, maybe I'd get some free gear, maybe I'd partner with the company, but really that was how I got noticed. It's so tough to get noticed nowadays. It's so tough to build a following organically. Like it just takes a lot and a lot of effort. And so like getting into those magazines, getting into Eastmans is a shortcut to that, where you get in and all of a sudden, you know, you've got something to put on your hunting resume. And not that everybody's goal is to get sponsored or to make a name in the industry, but people take notice when you're in the magazine, and it's definitely a stepping stone to get you to that place if your goal is to, you know, and it helps. Like when you love to hunt, like I love to hunt, I love to bow hunt, I'm going to go on these adventures and I'm going to take pictures, no matter if I'm showing no one, no matter if it's just for me, you know, whatever the case is. But there is something too that you can go on these adventures, and then like if you get help from some of these companies, it starts to help pay for your habit. You know, if you get some free gear from Eastman's, or if you get some free gear, all of a sudden you start getting free arrows or free broadheads from these companies. Well, it helps you hunt a little bit more. It helps supplement the thing that you love the most, you know. And so that was kind of what I started to take notice of, and it was like, man, people are really noticing I'm being publicized in this magazine. And that's really how I started my name, that opened up more doors, that got me to the opportunities that I have now. And I just love all these different formats where, you know, I love the writing and telling the story, and all it is it's bringing the words from in your head out to paper. And we mentioned Hemingway, like you don't have to be Hemingway, and you don't try to dress up your stories too much or be too fancy. Like all you do is just be yourself. And you try to like really describe what's in your head, and it's like tough to explain, but I love writing. Like I love writing these articles. You've got me a couple more projects to work on here due by August 1st. I'm super excited for those. I really want to sit down and write a book. I really want to put my photos together and sit down and take a winter and write a book. Like I love writing. And then you go to photography, and I love photography, sharing my hunts through photos and harvest pictures, support pictures all the way through of the cool stuff that I'm doing and the adventures I'm going on. Because you're right, a picture is 1,000 words. And so to have 400 pictures from my elk hunt or 400 pictures from a mule deer hunt, like that's just normal to me nowadays. You know, I absolutely love that. And I'm always trying to improve, trying to learn about, trying to get better, just so I can capture and show these hunts better. And then, you know, to the podcast, the audio side of things. Like I absolutely love this format. I love having guys like you on, Todd, and having like an authentic conversation about hunting, about photography, or whatever comes up. You know, I love to be able to describe things with your words, to excite people and to get them excited about hunting or putting in the research or getting better or getting good photos or writing a good article. Like I absolutely love this format, to the video side of things and trying to capture it through the video. It took me a few years. Like I thought I'm doing the coolest hunts out there if I could just have a cameraman, but then all of a sudden you got to be out there and learn how to tell the story and learn how to get the support shots, and you start learning.
Careful what you wish for.
It's a whole nother art form, you know, and a higher degree of difficulty. When you're trying to capture these hunts with a bow and arrow, you're trying to sneak two guys into bow range now, and so, you know, it's an added degree of difficulty. But you know, all of these arts, or all of these formats, I've just fallen in love with just being able to share what I absolutely love to do. And so I think you're right, Todd. It's just whether you're doing it for yourself, for the magazine, you're trying to build a name, whatever it is, it's just important that you're doing it and taking part in it, because it's such a great exercise to remember your hunts.
That's just part of the experience. It's part of the hunt for me now. You know, I was fortunate enough this last December to be right next to my brother when he harvested one of his biggest deer ever. And I just immediately went to work with the camera, with his phone, with my phone, with the DSLR. I mean, you name it. I don't know how many pictures we took of that buck and those moments, and video. I was laying down video too, but now he has that. You know, the next day, it was December, so it was cold. So we were able to, and it was not a backcountry hunt or anything. We were able to just dress the animal, and we were able to get even more pictures in the daylight because he shot it right last legal shooting light. and we were able to get it out and take more daylight photos with it the next day. And just taking the time and taking those photographs, it was over Christmas, and the deer hunt, me being with him at that moment of truth those are all huge things. But the photographs and video were like stocking stuffers at Christmas, man. He's got those. I flip back through my phone or look at the computer files, and I can relive that hunt. I can still see everything in my mind's eye when I look back at those photographs or watch those little video snippets. And it's priceless, absolutely priceless to have. And so if you're not doing it, you need to be, like you said. And there's lots of reasons, whether it's, whether you're pursuing a career or whether it's for yourself or whether you just like to see stories in print. I don't care. Do it up and send them in. We would love to have your submissions. And I think everything that you just said, Brian, is spot on. And if I was listening to this podcast and putting plans together for a big Western hunt, I'd be making sure that I was doing everything that you just said that we've been talking about.
Man, priceless is a good way to describe it. That moment when you're on top of the world and you put so much effort into it, and that moment when it all comes together is absolutely priceless. To have 150 photos of the harvest and your buddies around, it's absolutely priceless. You never regret taking them. Like, you just take a lot of photos. So just want to touch on a couple more things here, Todd. Really appreciate you taking the time this morning. But how do guys submit their articles to Eastmans?
Well, there's a couple ways you can do that, Brian. You can go on the website. Pardon me. You can go on the Eastmans website, which is just eastmans.com, and there will be a Submit a Story tab on there. And that Submit a Story tab will take you to basically give you a step-by-step process. Basically what it does is you will send an email to editorial@eastmans.com. You still there?
Yeah, still here. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. I thought I missed you for a second. You can basically, what you're going to do is send an email to editorial@eastmans.com. You can do that through the website, or you can just write it down. It's editorial@eastmans.com, and that will come to me. And we've kind of streamlined the submission process. Before, we had this big, long form that people had to fill out online, and it was kind of unwieldy. And so what we've done is we've just made it simple, where you shoot me an email and you have the ability to attach a picture, like one photograph, to that email. And that will get a conversation started between us, between me, between you and me, basically. And we can go from there. I will walk you step by step through the process of what I need, how I need it, and make it as easy and painless for you as possible. That was just when we looked at our process that we had in place, we felt like it was just a little cumbersome, and we wanted it a little bit more personalized. And so that's kind of what we've come up with, and it's working really, really well. I love talking to folks, whether it's on the phone or whether it's via email. I love that communication, because I feel like if I'm directly communicating with someone, there's a much smaller likelihood of miscommunication or misunderstanding. If that makes sense. The other thing you can do, which is kind of a new one, is tag us in your social media posts. Instagram, Facebook. If you're posting up pictures of an animal, tag us. Tag @Eastmans or @Eastmans Hunting Journals, and it'll come to us. I get probably, I would say last year I got the bulk of my submissions off of social media. And a lot of that was me hunting people down. If you see me slide into your DMs, all right, at Eastman slide into your DMs, that's me. And I'm going to be asking you to think about submitting a story. And we can start a conversation that way. But you can be proactive too and tag us in those posts. That's a great, great way to get our attention because quite honestly, there's so much stuff. And Brian, in the next few, well, basically from the middle of August until January, I don't think I set my phone down, man. I am on social media constantly, looking for animals, looking for submissions, looking for people that have a good story to tell, and encouraging them to get a hold of me and tell that story. And so if you're tagging Eastmans Hunting Journals in your post, that's going to get my attention before I even see it, because I'll be honest with you, there's stuff you miss. You can, unless you're on it 24/7, there's posts that you don't see, and they come back around, and you don't usually get to see them. But yeah, tag Eastmans Hunting Journals in your social media posts, and we'll get right back to you, or shoot us an email. You can call, and then of course there's the old school way too. You can download all your stuff, all your photographs and a story and your equipment list on like a thumb drive or a flash drive, and you can snail mail that thing to us here in Powell, Wyoming. I still get submissions that way, and they work. The only thing that I can't use, Brian, are, in the old days we could scan photographs and things like that, and we could still like take pictures of pictures or scan things. It's really tough because the quality of scanned images into a magazine is just not there. And it's really, really hard. So we ask that you don't send us hard copies of your photos. Send us digital platforms. The other thing that I have to have for the magazine is your photographs have to be at least 1 megabyte or larger. If there's usually what happens is, my buddy took a picture with his phone and then he texted it to me. Your pictures get compressed in that. And so a picture that it started that process, the original photo might be 4, 5, 6 megabytes. By the time it gets texted over and compressed down, it might be 648 kilobytes. Well, it's too small to print in a magazine if it's in kilobytes. It's got to be original size and original format. Raw images are by far the best, but we're getting into territory there that, if you're not a photographer or somebody who's really serious about it, you might not know what that means. Just make sure that when you're sending images that they come in the highest quality possible, the highest resolution possible. 3 to 10 megabytes is ideal. Anything more than 10 megabytes is like, that's dream stuff. That's like the Boone and Crockett photograph,
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was great tips about the compressed files, sending the best copy of the photo that you have. All that submittal things, submitting to Eastmans, you can find on the website there, in the magazine. And just shoot Todd a line. He is a great editor. Todd, you do such a great job with my articles.
Thanks,
a lot of editors like to overcorrect or overwrite some of your stuff, and so they'll take your article and take pieces of it and rewrite it, and then it's not your own words. It's like not your writing. You do a really good job of leaving my writing and my personality alone, and then correcting some little things along the way and making it read better. And every time you make a change, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That does read way better. You changed a description of the podcast a little while ago where I was like, man, he did a better job at it. That just reads better than what I wrote. It says the same thing, but you just do a really good job of not ruining the writer's voice, but also helping them look a little bit better and a little bit smarter at times, So I really like that. So we can find all the information. I also just want to touch on another dirty side of things is exclusive content. So I've had people that I've pushed your way to do articles, and sometimes feelings get hurt because we want exclusive content at Eastmans. And a lot of times what people do is they kill a big animal and they send that story out to different publications to see who's interested. Some of these other publications will just print that story, and the guy doesn't even know they're printing them. But all of a sudden you go to Eastmans then, and Eastmans is interested in your story, and they go, but wait, you just got you just got published in this other magazine. We want exclusive rights, or at least to be first on the article. We don't want people to see the same story and the same pictures throughout the magazines. We want to have our own original content. And so if you're shopping magazines to get printed in, Make sure that you're touching bases with Todd before you're sending them to other people. If Eastman's is the #1 Western magazine, like, just make sure you touch bases and at least talk to Todd and have a conversation before you start sending them out other places, because I've had some guys with some feelings hurt because other magazines printed them, or there was a miscommunication and all of a sudden Eastman's can't print their article. So when you do harvest a good critter, like, we like exclusive content. Right, Todd? I just wanted to touch on that a little bit for guys, because I've definitely seen a couple guys that where it hasn't worked out real well.
No, you're absolutely right, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Brian. It seems like every year I have to have one or two of those hard conversations with folks who maybe weren't aware of that, and it was pretty innocent. That happens. Guys don't know that if you're going to submit to Eastmans, that we won't print. If one of our competitors picks up the story and uses it before we do, we won't print it. That kind of excludes you then from Eastmans, and I have to have that conversation a couple times a year, and most folks understand, they get it, and it was, as an honest mistake, or maybe they were just kind of shopping around and it doesn't matter to them. But the ones that do happen from time to time is you go with an outfitter, and maybe an outfitter has connections somewhere, and that article will show up someplace. If you do that and you're on an outfitted hunt, if you can get exclusive, basically rights of refusal or just an agreement that says, hey, I want control of the media on this and whatever. And some outfitters will do that, some won't. Those are muddy waters, man. And that's
super muddy.
You kind of have to, you kind of have to navigate as you go. And obviously, if you have a doubt or if you have a question, call me, email me, talk to me, communicate, and let's see what we can work out. But you're absolutely right. We like to have exclusive rights to content, and if it shows up in another magazine, we're probably not going to print it. The one exception to that, Brian, and I get this question a lot, is, well, what about Boone and Crockett's publication? Or what about how it showed up in the local sporting club's newsletter? Or, it was in the Wyoming Wildlife magazine? Or those are like nonprofit type magazines, organization magazines such as FNAWS or RMEF. Those little, sporting newsletters type things like that, newspapers, those don't count. We obviously don't view those as competition in this space. And so if some guy kills a great big sheep and it shows up in FNAWS, or it's, not a big deal. I can still use that story because it's a little bit I don't know what to call it, but we don't consider that just disqualification, if you will. So
not direct competition. I'm with you.
The other thing, you're right about.
Go ahead, Tom.
I'm biased. You and I are biased because we work for Eastmans, but you're not wrong. This is the best Western hunting magazine or best Western hunting publication out there. And if you really want to tell your story and reach the most people, this is the platform that you want to be on. I've had that conversation with lots of folks, and it's like, if you want the most people to see your buck, bull, ram, moose, whatever, this is where you want to be. And it may take, the process that we use is that guy picks the stories, and I get everything, I gather everything, and then he hand picks the stories for each magazine. And we do that on a monthly basis. So I don't have a calendar of things laid out months and months and months in advance, for the most part. Some things we do that way, but for the most part, when it comes to features, Guy and I sit down a couple weeks before we go to print, and I figure out he picks the stories he wants in what magazine. And so honestly, a lot of times, Brian, I don't know what's going to be in an issue until a few weeks before it happens. That's the way Guy likes to do it. That's his program. And so I try to keep people in the loop as much as I possibly can, but folks do get impatient. And I understand that. They're excited, man. They want to know. And I understand, and I do the best that I can to say, hey, you're in the pool, you're in the selection pool, and I will let you know as soon as I do. Thanks for your patience, and I really understand that it can be hard to wait. So that's kind of how that works. And so if you submit a story and you don't hear anything from me for months, that's not bad. No news is good news kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. One thing I want to add too, Todd, is through Eastmans, you get in the magazine. I'll have you on the podcast. I mean, most likely, I'm picking people out of the magazine, and I'm getting hints from guys from Todd and things, and trying to pick and choose and have good conversations and hit up these guys. But if you're in the magazine, hit me up, send me a DM. I'll have you on the podcast. I'd love to have you and talk over your story and what you're into. And so, the podcast is tough. We do one a week, and I like picking guests and people that I can have good conversations with. And so we kind of pick and choose, but I'd love to have, if you guys get a story and you get it published in the magazine, give me a shout. I'd love to have you on the podcast, and we'll have you on for an episode. So just a good bonus to being in the magazine. And man, Todd, I really enjoy our conversations. We've already gone long. I wanted to get into elk hunting, and then I also I just want to mention Todd runs all the wingman stuff there at Eastmans. He does a great job. He runs the social media, all the content. Real quick, Todd, what do you have going on there at Eastmans right now? What are you guys working on? Or at Wingman, sorry.
On the wingman side of things, obviously a lot of pre-season stuff. We've got gear coming in for all kinds of reviews. I've got a big lineup of shotguns to do for shotgun reviews. And obviously that'll be YouTube channel and social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook. And I'm sitting here kind of looking over my shoulder. I've got a brand new Sitka vest that just came rolling in, and they're brand new. They just debuted these things, and I'm itching to put that thing through the paces and let people know how it works. And it's kind of packed with some cool features. So that's the big thing, Brian. Just like on the big game side of things, everybody's getting ready for season. It's the same thing here, doing dog work, doing a bunch of clay pigeon shooting, whether it's skeet or sporting clays or trap, just honing those skills and putting together plans for different accesses and different hunts, and just ramping up for fall, man. It's the same on the waterfowl and upland side of things as it is for the big game guys. That anticipation is there. We may have a little more gear that we get to tinker with because you guys don't have dozens of decoys to play with like we do.
Well, how cool. You do a great job with Wingman as the editor there.
Thanks,
at Eastmans. Make sure to give Todd a follow on his Instagram. He runs the Wingman page and Facebook and things. You guys put out great content. Man, I always really enjoy our conversations. Let's try to get out fishing again. And thanks, Todd. I really appreciate it, man. That went quick.
Yeah, same here. It was good to chat, Brian, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yep, sounds good. All right. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Fun conversation with Todd. He's just a great guy. Like I say, I've had fun hanging out with him this past summer. We've been doing some fishing together, and I'll be pulling for him here for elk season, see if he can turn up a good bull. So important to capture your hunts, whether it's through photographs, video, written word. Just so fun to look back on and capture these wild moments of adventure in our life. And so it just brings it to the forefront of our mind talking about it. And so hopefully got you guys some good information coming into season. I'd like to thank our sponsors for today's show, High Mountain Seasoning, just everything you need to process your wild game, jerky seasonings, snack sticks, summer sausage, steak marinades. They have it all. Make sure to check them out. Iota Outdoors, just high-end scope rings and bases. Rings and bases you can trust. They build the level right on them. They also build rifle stocks. Make sure to check them out, Iota Outdoors. Over here at Eastmans, like I say, Dan's had a little success this season. That's been fun. and just waiting for some more pictures to roll in from the guys. Hunting like a madman here. I'm about worn out, man. Oh man. Couple weeks chasing mule deer, absolute mule deer bliss up in the high country. Really chased some monsters up there. So I'll be sharing pieces of the hunt. I also recorded a live podcast throughout. So I've got to put together about 30 clips that I have, and so it came out a little bit long, but it's all in real time, which will be fun to release to you guys. You know, in this podcast, I'm always in a comfortable studio, or i.e. my basement, you know, in my office down here. But I'm always in a comfortable space, thinking and talking about hunting. But it's a little bit different when you're there. You get to hear, you know, my frustration. You get to hear when I fail. You know, I click it on at all the worst times and all the best times too. So you can hear the excitement, and I think I'll call it the highs and lows of mule deer season. Should be a good listen. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's a real-time podcast. I've had this vision for a while to try to do this. So I just need to edit it up and get it released to you guys. Hopefully I can release it as a bonus episode here, and keep hunting. I've had a couple days to recover here, and I want to get chasing some elk. I see some elk hitting the dirt. I'm sure they're getting rutting hard. So yeah, I just got to get out, just got to keep hunting here. So yeah, I wish you guys all the best this season. Thanks for all the kind messages. Congratulations on all your guys' success. It isn't easy out there on public ground. Just so happy for you guys, especially you guys that are out there working hard, putting in the time, improving your skill set, and being successful. It's really fun to share in. And with that, yeah, that's a wrap. I'll check in with you guys next week.